How long have you been playing video games? 5 years? A decade? How about 20 years or more? No matter how large your number is, chances are if you've played games for a long time, you probably have fond memories of the games you played in the past. This fondness is known as nostalgia. And the feeling is not exclusive to games. You can feel nostalgic about just about anything. But in games specifically, we tend to run into issues when we revisit the games of the past. Sometimes they don't look correct on our modern displays. Sometimes bad emulation can ruin the experience. Oftentimes, the games we are nostalgic for don't play as well as we remember, and it's by no fault of the game's creators. I call this the nostalgia problem, and today on GamePsych, I will demonstrate its effects using a newly released nostalgic romp, the Crash Bandicoot N.Sane Trilogy. This is Crash. Originally released on the PlayStation in 1996, Crash Bandicoot would go on to become the de facto mascot of the original PlayStation. Developed by Naughty Dog, the original Crash games enjoyed near universal critical praise and sold well around the globe. So it comes as no surprise that there are millions of players around the world with a nostalgia for Crash Bandicoot. Fast forward to 2017, and we have the N.Sane Trilogy, a collection of the first 3 Crash games remade for modern hardware. This is what fans have been asking for, a return to the originals brought into the modern era on PS4. And for the most part, this is exactly what we got. But something's off. I've read countless comments and threads where players are crying foul, claiming that these remasters just aren't as good as the originals, that something was lost in translation, and this raises an important question. Is the N.Sane Trilogy flawed, or is this an example of the nostalgia problem? To answer this question, you need to understand why these remasters were made in the first place. Let's talk about the original PlayStation, shall we? The PlayStation at the time of its release was the most powerful console available. The 3D visuals put Sega and Nintendo's efforts to shame, or at least that's how it looked at the time. You see, while most of Nintendo's early 3D games focused on colorful, simplified design, many early PlayStation games would instead focus on sharp visual details, cramming as much on screen as possible. Back in '96, these densely packed visuals made a powerful statement, but time has not been kind to the original PlayStation. Playing PlayStation games on modern TVs reveals the sharp and polygonal limitations of the hardware, and it's a problem that's much less apparent on, say, a Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, or even the N64. These poorly aged visuals create a nostalgia problem. Players miss PlayStation games like Crash, and their attempts to play them on their modern TVs falls short of their expectations. To fulfill this need, Crash Bandicoot got a remaster, and updated visuals are the prime objective. I believe the N.Sane Trilogy does a tremendous job of bringing Crash into the modern era, without overstepping the vision set forth by Naughty Dog in the 90s. Crash looks just like how you remember he does, or at least how he looks in your nostalgic memories, even though the original games don't hold a candle to the remasters. Another strong example of this type of remake can be found in the 3DS remakes of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Both feature new visual assets and player models, but they are so faithful to the original concept art, your brain tricks you into thinking that this is how it's always looked. When done correctly, a remaster can be a wonderful tool for nostalgia. But it's not all roses and Wumpa fruit. Hidden beneath the surface of the N.Sane Trilogy exist cracks in the original formula. Mechanical issues like ledge detection and hitboxes are slightly different from the original games. Are these cracks enough to sink the game? In my opinion, the answer is a resounding no. And unless you've been regularly playing the original Crash games, you may not even notice these differences exist. But these differences, however small, have created a divide amongst fans. Many believe these small tweaks have made the game harder. Some game critics have even cited the difficulty of the N.Sane Trilogy as a major negative. Again, this is a nostalgia problem. Are the remasters perfect clones? No. Do the slight differences in the remasters make Crash that much harder? Again, no. And here's why. Let's take another look at the original Crash, the one that started it all. Crash Bandicoot is a hard video game. No, seriously, Crash 1 is to 3D what Mega Man was to 2D. It's designed around failure. You're going to die a lot, and there is no easy mode. No amount of tweaking hitboxes or adjustments to ledge mechanics will change the design of Crash 1. You can dust off your PS1 and a CRT and the result will be largely the same. Crash Bandicoot is a hard video game. But why do so many of us remember the lush jungles, the goofy animations, and the ear-catching music? All of the fun parts of Crash, but forget about just how brutally difficult and punishing the game was. You see, nostalgia is a powerful feeling, but it's not trustworthy. When we feel nostalgic, our brains aren't recalling memories, but are revisiting a past emotional state. According to R HIRSH in his report Nostalgia, a neuropsychiatric understanding, nostalgia is a yearning for an idealized past. You see, our brains, much like any other human organ, is constantly trying to protect us. And so, when our brain recalls a memory, it distorts and changes the memory to feel more positive, to evoke a happy sensation. The human mind has a built-in bias to remember the good things and forget the bad. And it does this to keep us happy and healthy. This built-in protection system is what creates the nostalgia problem. Some things will never live up to the memories we've created, and this definitely includes our favorite games. Games like Crash Bandicoot, which, despite the problems I've just presented to you, is selling millions of copies around the world and finding a home with players who've never played the original games. And that is the takeaway. Nostalgia can create problems and play with our expectations, but it can't rewrite the past and it can't ruin a classic game.